Now to Odesa in Ukraine and Michael Bociurkiw, who is a former spokesperson for the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe and a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Appreciate you being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So with the U.S. election just 2 weeks away, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin made that surprise visit to the war-torn nation and not only announced a $400 million aid package, but also delivered a speech that appeared to counter Republican criticism of Europe not contributing enough aid compared to the U.S., making the point that a dozen U.S. allies and partners now provide more security assistance to Ukraine than America. What impact could all this have in the end, do you think?
Good to be with you again, Rosemary. Well, of course, this $400 million is welcome. Ukraine needs especially more munitions, but I'll quote what the Lithuanian foreign minister said the other day, Mr. Landsbergis, that, while the West struggles to come up with tens of billions of dollars, Mr. Putin in Russia comes up with 140 billion at the snap of his fingers. A bit of exaggeration, but that's what's happening. And if you consider that he's also got the backing of Iran, North Korea, on the sidelines, China and other bad guys, that's quite the advantage. I can tell you, Rosemary, that although Ukrainians have got used to these visits, they've got used to Western leaders coming, taking selfies, slapping themselves on the back and gratitude. But I think the growing feeling here is that if Mr. Trump gets in, that they will pretty much be further and further along on their own. They'll have to, as I've long been saying, rely more on their neighbors, the Baltic states, Poland, and other European partners. But the mood here is very dark at the moment, with the expectation that it could be another Trump presidency. Hence, aid from its biggest backer could be cut off or reduced substantially.
Yeah, let's talk more about that because, of course, as we've mentioned, the U.S. election just 14 days away. Ukraine very much focused on what the outcome could mean in terms of this continued U.S. military support. Let's talk about just how worried Ukraine is about a possible win for Donald Trump and what he would do, because he has said that he will end the war in Ukraine. Let's look at the plan he has to do that.
Yeah, well, the words coming out of the mouths of the Trump and his vice presidential candidate are basically Kremlin talking points, Rosemary, where they're talking about Russia holding on to the territory it already has, possibly 2 more oblasts. It talks about some vague demilitarized zone. And it also refers to Ukraine dropping its bid for NATO and other Western alliances. This would be absolutely disastrous for Ukraine. And there's no way, as we saw in Zelensky's victory plan, that Ukraine could go for something like that. And the other thing, of course, happening in the background in the wider perspective is with Trump, like he did during his disastrous presidency, due to kind of take the boxing gloves off when it comes to people like Mr. Putin, the North Korean leader and others, it will empower them. It will empower them to go even further. So I don't think it's only the Ukrainians feel this way. Imagine, for example, how the Filipinos feel with China trampling all over their territories in the South China Sea. Imagine how the Taiwanese feel right now if Trump gets in and he doesn't push back China when it comes to Taiwan, where there's no deterrence. So I don't mean to depress everybody, but the big scenario is very, very stark at the moment, and very dark. And I think Ukrainians are saying to the world, look, it's very, very important to push back Mr. Putin now, because if not, it sends a bad signal to other dictators. And in addition to that, he will also go further, and hence defense spending, boots on the ground, will all go up.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, there is that widespread concern across Europe, isn't there, and in Ukraine, of the possibility of a Trump win. You mentioned Europe not responding as Kyiv would have liked to President Zelensky's victory plan. What does that indicate to you?
I've looked at this very carefully, and I think there is some fault on the side of the Zelensky administration. It is not a well-articulated plan. It's something that's repackaged previous proposals. And, I think they're losing their radar, their compass a little bit. Their trip to the United States was a disaster. I think a lot of this has to do with them getting rid of educated technocrats like the really well-respected foreign minister, Mr. Kuleba, and trying to go out on their own. Well, it doesn't work very well. You can't work in isolation like that. So the biggest thing in that victory plan, which I think everyone doesn't have a problem supporting, especially here in Europe, is for the Ukrainians to get permission to strike further into Russia with Western missiles. I mean, Rosemary, overnight across Ukraine, we had 60 Russian drones attack Ukraine. That's more than I ever remember. And we had a missile here 24 hours ago in Odesa. So air defense systems alone don't do it. Ukrainians have to have that ability to strike inside Russia where these launches are coming from. And I think the Europeans understand that. And I think you may see a scenario play out where Ukraine is quietly given the okay to strike deeper inside Russia. And that's something I think Europeans would be very supportive of.
All right, we'll see what happens with that. Michael Bociurkiw joining us from Odesa. Many thanks and stay safe there. Appreciate it.
Thank you.